that gets too much.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for being here, and on a Saturday night too. I'm sorry I stole your book with your notes in it as you were leaving. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be able to do this and to have such a great audience. Thank you so much for there's so many of you, and the room extends back and back. This is sort of a homecoming tour for me. I did go to USC for my undergrad, but and I didn't realize that there would be hisses. This was something I was not aware of, but thank you for holding them. I went to USC for my undergrad, but I actually went to high school in Palo Alto. No, I try. No, so this is I started this tour earlier in the week in San Diego and have just come up through LA and Santa Cruz. So this is sort of a homecoming round trip for me for a part of my life that I really enjoyed, and it's full of sentimentality now. So the way this works is I usually talk about the book a little bit and about how it began and came about, and I read a little bit, and then I talk some more, but not for very much. Since there are so few people standing today, I actually won't read the whole book, which is what I did yesterday. No. Then I turn it over to you for the Q&A, and I'm very happy to take questions, and I feel like you should dictate that and dictate how the rest of the evening goes. So a little bit about me. I was born in Belgrade and grew up there, and then moved with my family in '92. Sort of everybody moved to Cyprus, and later on to Egypt, where we lived in Cairo. And I had sort of decided that I wanted to be a writer very early on in my life. When at the age of 8, when we were living in Cyprus, I was I wanted to play with a new toy that came in the house, which had the same import as a baby brother or a dog, but was in fact a laptop computer, which was the newest thing, and weighed about 3,000 pounds, and you had to drag it along in a wheelie. I was not permitted to play with it under any pretense other than doing something productive. And so I said, I'll write a story. This will be great. And I wrote a short story about a goat who has a bad day. And I was learning English at the time, so goat goat was a great word because it was short. I was 8 years old, and 4 letters was about the most I could do at the time, and all the letters were different in goat. So it was a good kind of word to start with, and I went to my mother and I said, here's a story about a goat, and I want to be a writer, and she said, okay, great, and that had been the plan. So I went to high school, and then before I knew it, I was in undergrad for creative writing, and then going to grad school also for creative writing, when I was moving from LA to Cornell, something very significant happened. My grandfather died, and we were very close throughout my life. And my grandparents had raised me and traveled with us when we left Serbia, and then they had gone back to Serbia. So my whole experience of the homeland was through returns to see them later on in the 2000s. And when my grandfather died, he was very far away, and I was about to make this huge transition in my life, and move on to grad school and really make a pursuit of being a writer. And I thought somehow with the transition, the emotional transition of his death, and then the physical transition to Cornell, I thought, well, somehow I'll get through this, and I'll make it okay. And I'm trying to make these steps towards my life, and it'll be significant, and thought I'd gotten through the grieving process and moved to Cornell, where I imagined that my life as a writer was going to unfold more or less, with cups of hot cocoa and snow falling down, and I was very excited about this. People who lived in Ithaca are smiling from the back. I thought, great, I'm going from Los Angeles to this place that has seasons. It'll be wonderful. Fall will come, it'll be orange, and then winter will come and it'll be white, and it'll be wonderful. And sure enough, snow fell, and after about the third time, I dug up the wrong car because it happened to be the same color as mine. When I scraped off the initial snow to see what color it was, I thought, well, I've had enough of seasons, and I'd rather go back to California, but no such luck. So there I was in this snow, and trying to write, and living in a little subterranean apartment outside of Ithaca, where that was conveniently made to add extra torture to the snowfall, because the floor of the apartment was subterranean, and then the windowsill, which was at waist level, was also ground level outside. So when the snow began, you would stand and look through the window, and it was like an hourglass of your imprisonment sort of building up as it rose above. You thought, oh well, and now I have to write. And it was during such a snowstorm and such an imprisonment that I tried to write by instead bombarding myself with National Geographic specials all day long on TV. And there was a special on Siberian tigers. And this Russian researcher who had two of them in sort of semi-captivity in this crazy big enclosure, and he was doing research on them, and he had a wife. And this woman who had raised these tigers since cubhood had this amazing ability, this gift to bring them down out of the most terrible rages with just, her voice, with this soothing timbre of her voice, and they would just turn, they would just turn to goo when she spoke. And I thought, this is amazing. This is something really cool, and I was inspired and I was trapped. So I wrote a short story called The Tiger's Wife, which was about a young deaf-mute woman who shows up in a village in the Balkans following her escaped circus tiger. And their interaction is observed by this little boy in the village. And when I finished the story, I thought, hey, what are the Balkans doing here? I'd never written about my childhood before and my heritage before, and I thought, this is strange that I'm writing about them, but sort of made no mental connection. Your grandfather's dead, and here are these Balkans now in your story. I thought, great, doesn't matter. I'm very excited about this short story anyway, and took it to workshop, and thought it's going to be great. And I'm very excited about this, and hopefully others will be too, and we'll have a wonderful discussion. And submitted the story, and it was just destroyed because it was a terrible, terrible short story, and I've read it since, and it's a terrible, terrible short story. And many of the comments about it were quite valid, including my favorite one, which was made by my friend and colleague Alexei Zentner, who also has a book out now. And he said, I remember his face from across the workshop table, and I remember him saying, this book has pitchfork-wielding rabble in it and torches. And yet the book is not, the story is not Frankenstein. That doesn't go. If it's not Frankenstein, there shouldn't be pitchforks and torches. And I thought, wow. So there are no more pitchforks in the book, though there might be some torches, but hopefully not too many. And I was very disheartened, and yet went home and sort of felt connected to the characters still, and thought, okay, well, I'll edit this story based on people's comments, and I'll make it better somehow. There has to be something here if I'm still connected to these characters. So I set about editing it, and it went from being 20 pages to 30 pages, and was just as bad. And now the badness had sort of spread out into another 10 pages, so there was just more of it. And I thought, well, this is no good. So I kept working on it, and suddenly it was 40 pages. And I thought, well, it's a little bit better now because there's sort of a dissipation, there's a dissolution of this badness across more pages now, and this is good. And it was very contrary to the experience that I thought I was going to have, and that we all back me up here, John. That we all thought we were going to have when we started writing novels. We most of us came to an MFA workshop as short story writers and believed wholeheartedly that the day you decided to write a novel, you were going to come into the workshop, sweating and intensely agitated from the sleeplessness of the night before when you had made this momentous decision about your life. And people would come into the workshop and say, what's wrong with you? And you would say, well, I've been thinking about it, and I've decided I'm ready to write a novel. And you'd sort of pound your fist on the table and say, this is a great day for me, and truly a great day for all of us. And isn't it wonderful? You know, let's all celebrate. Who's with me? And you know, everybody would cheer and like hoist you up on their shoulders and carry you about the room, and then you'd go home and write your novel. And in reality, the way it went was, you know, 20 pages is bad, and 30 pages is bad, and 40 pages is a little bit better. At 50 pages, I can't really call it a short story anymore, and at 100 pages, you know, you come into the workshop and you say, I think I'm writing a novel. And that's how it went for me.